So I got one. This is still the one unfinished business item now, but they're just,
And then there's the rules and procedures update and the TIF
okay.
order.
Council thing at the end of the day. This is a step on.
Is this the public stuff? Okay, this is
This is for the
or the,
unfinished business.
okay. Oh boy. All right. All right, it is 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We will go ahead and call this meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so you can stand with me and do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with roll call.
Dennis Anderson,
Here.
Josh Westrich, Jason Lawson,
Here.
Sarah Ford,
Here.
Craig Arthur,
Here.
Brian Sheward.
Here.
Alrighty. And are there any adjustments that we need to make to the approval of the agenda? I don't think there are. I just wanted to make sure. Okay. Moving on from there, we'll go ahead and move to the approval of the August meeting minutes. So I'll take a motion for that approval.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion that we adopt the August meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we adopted the August meeting minutes. Moving on to public requests to speak. Are there any public requests to speak outside the agenda items this evening? So this is kind of a free-for-all. Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead. It looks like we have no presentations this evening. So we'll go ahead and move to the unfinished business. We only have one docket item today. So docket PC 17-037ZA, the 2PL LLC zoning amendment continuance. If we could have the petitioner come up and speak. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Alex Bruggenschmidt. I'm the attorney for the applicant, petitioner 2PL LLC. The subject property we're considering in this request is approximately a 76-acre parcel that is immediately adjacent to the west of the development known as the Whitestown Business Park at 267, State Road 267 and Perry Boulevard. My client respectfully requests zoning consistent with that development, I-1, as a continuation of that project currently under construction, warehousing primarily, distribution facilities. This request is in response to intense market demand. We believe that it's consistent with the comprehensive plan and that it'll further advance the economic base in the area. Over the past year, we've met extensively with neighbors in conjunction with staff to address some of the concerns that have been raised, specifically traffic on County Road 300, which is not paved, and the appearance of warehouse distribution facilities in proximity to four rural residences. As indicated in the staff report, we've made commitments to do everything we reasonably can to accommodate those concerns. The first of which is not having any access from the parcel to County Road 300 East, so will not increase traffic or truck or noise on County Road 300. The second thing that the site plan shows in the staff report, that's actually a prior version of the site plan. There we go, yes, okay. This version of the site plan shows basically 6 to 8 foot berm buffering the entire western, northern, and southern boundaries of the subject property. My client, I think, has shown a commitment to do everything reasonably possible to minimize the impact on the folks that are neighboring to the west while maintaining project feasibility. And with that, we'd respectfully request that the commission enter a favorable recommendation for approval for the zone map change to I-1 from agricultural. If the commission has any questions?
Great, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll go ahead and move to any public comments or concerns in regards to this agenda item. I do know that we received some letters and some information from Harry and Margaret. If you'd like to, would you like to come up and say anything further? And just as a FYI as well, if you haven't already filled out the public request to speak, I know we did receive the letters, but if you could also fill out a public request to speak form afterwards so we have that information on file, that'd be great. Thank you. If you could say your name and address of residence and you can get started.
Margaret Ann Stum, we're 4650 S300E. This will come right in front of our house, and we can't imagine what it's going to be like with the Perry Boulevard extension. The trucks are, even with the barrier, it's going to be right in our house, the lights and all, and we're worried about the value of our 6 acres and home, what it's going to do to that. Also, the Harts, which are down on the south side, they're not here because their daughter has had brain surgery Friday, and they're at Methodist Hospital with her. They would ask that I say that they're not happy with it either. So, it's just not a place for warehouses. It's rural, it's country. We can understand the warehouses over on 267, but coming back into this rural area, just, if you come out and look at our area, you'd understand. Thank you.
Ma'am, can you tell me real quick, which property are you in that?
If we could go back maybe a slide.
Around the Royals, the 5 acre, we're ready to finish on right here at the last.
To the south, to the southwest, or
Be west.
southwest side, or just due west?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
We connect with the Royals, and we're on the other side, on the west side. of
Okay.
300.
Sir, if you could come up to, we have it broadcasting as well. Sure, you can fill it out retroactively, that's okay.
I have a thing on,
If you could say your name and address, I'm sorry, sir.
It's Miller right down the street from them. You have one way in from 267, they have no access on the outside there. What if you put a chemical company right there in the center, or over in that building right there, and you get a fire started? I want to know how you're going to get all those people out of there, 100 and some people, I think it was, with holes in the property there, and that other area there, evacuated out of those 2 lanes of road to 267 to save their lives. And then when we were talking an 8-foot wall. Now I hear it's 6 to 8 foot wall. I want at least an 8-foot wall in there because I don't want to look at the traffic and the people over there. So I want to know why that changed from 6 to 8 all of a sudden, because I thought it was talked about 8-foot wall.
Okay, and we can give the petitioner a chance to respond if you don't have any other further concerns.
I mean, at the other place where their DA Lubricants on down the road, they're far enough away from everybody, and they've got access to a couple of roads where they can get people out of there. We're not going to get anybody if you put a DA Lubricants in there.
Could you, sure. Go ahead, sir. I'll let you finish.
That's all.
If you could give us your address of residence, just so we have that on record as well. Can you give us your mailing address, sir?
4490 South 300 East.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Thank you.
recorded, so it helps us out, but thank you.
And if there are any other public requests to speak, we'll have the petitioner come up and address those concerns. If Mr. Petitioner, you'd like to come up.
Just to clean up a couple of issues with that, regarding the height of the berm, 6 to 8 feet has always been a part of the site plan and what has been recommended by staff. To the extent that 8 feet is required, we're happy to make that commitment as well, but this isn't a new proposal being 6 to 8 feet. It's always been in that range. With respect to public safety issues, we were requested not to have access off County Road 300. To the extent as we move forward down the line with the development plan, there are public safety issues. We're happy to address that issue then, whether a cul-de-sac or emergency access or something like that is appropriate. But for purposes of land use, we have not addressed that issue.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, if you'd like to come up and you have a 3-minute chance to rebuttal.
Last time we talked, that was the thing I saw right there. So I never had a wall at all. And then we heard a guy came, I don't know who it was, talked to one of us, and they said that it's an 8-foot wall. I never ever heard 6-foot wall. I heard all 8-foot walls. So I never heard 6-foot wall. I don't know where that came from, but I never had a wall at all on my property side.
Yeah, so
And I was going to look at it.
to an
And then I come
8-foot
here
berm.
last time, it was continued, and they told me it's an 8-foot wall. And I went out there happier, knowing it's an 8-foot wall, with no wall at all. So I'm finding an 8-foot wall, so I don't see that crack all day.
Sir, I'm just curious, what will that
2
much make a
feet.
difference?
Put 8-foot wall.
I'm just curious, I just want to know.
Well, if you're out in the country and you look at nothing but cornfield and soybeans,
Sure.
I don't want to look at this. I don't want to look at the ones over the next field, but I don't have a problem with that. If this was in your backyard, I guarantee you'd want it at least, I can't get, if I could ask for a 20-foot wall, I would. But you're not going to give me that. And you're probably going to give me the warehouses anyway. You know, it doesn't matter what I want anyway, but I wanted an 8-foot wall. 2 more feet would help me sitting on my front porch. I don't have to look at this as bad, you know?
Sure.
I don't have to see the 100-some employees parking lot there and the trash blowing over my
I,
property. and
I
stuff
think
like
you made the commitment for the 8-foot wall, didn't you?
Well, can I clarify real quick? So we're not talking about a wall, it's a berm, correct? So it'll be an
It's a
earth.
hill.
It'll be a hill,
Right.
It's a
earth,
hill.
earthen berm.
that. Yeah, earth hill.
I know oftentimes in the UDO, it will say things like 6 to 8 foot.
Yep.
I personally, I don't know if we're weighing in with our, well, I'll digress for a second, and then when it comes time, I'll maybe speak a part that I have an opinion on, but yeah,
Sure, we can come to that after the staff report.
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, anything, you know. I don't want to find out my stuff.
I think I think we can, I think many of us can agree and many of us can agree to disagree. I think from a landscaping standpoint, if you have trees on top of an 8-foot berm, those types of plantations typically don't have a chance to actually mature. And a 6-foot berm also provides an opportunity usually for plants to have more of an area to mature versus a steep 6 or 8-foot berm. But loud and clear, we hear you, sir. And I think the petitioners address those concerns. I think maybe we should move on to the staff report, and then we can hear.
We'll keep talking.
We can definitely keep that conversation going. Absolutely. On that note, if we can go ahead and move to the staff report.
Let me ask, I see a couple people out there. Is anybody else here to speak on behalf of this issue from the public? No, like I see you didn't, you were looking up here like maybe you wanted to speak. No, okay.
Yeah. If you could come up
Yeah,
and,
if you
I'm
have
sorry,
a
just for the
question,
record, if you could.
Now is the time.
At 4650 S 300E.
Thank you.
I know we're going to have warehouses probably everywhere, but what are you going to do when you don't have any farmland to grow the crops? The way Lebanon's making warehouses, Zionsville and all that. When you have kids and everything, I'll probably be dead, but you got to look down the line. What's going to happen when we don't have any farmland to grow crops?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the staff report.
Staff recommends that the Plan Commission approve the rezone request to change the property from AG Agriculture to Light Industrial with the following commitments. Applicant will provide a landscaping berm of 6 to 8 feet to provide buffering along the northwest and south end of the property, as shown in the staff report in yellow, and no access will be given off County Road 300 East.
Thank you. And we can move on to the Plan Commission's comments and concerns.
Yeah, I want to make sure I understand, because it's a little bit fuzzy for me, maybe you guys can answer this for me. It looks like there's several notes there along different stretches of that western buffer, and I was trying to understand what each one of those mean, and that specifically where it bumps in, I can't quite read it on my phone when I zoom in. Do you know if there's any difference as you move around that yellow/green area? Is there any difference in the berm across that, or is it just a uniform
That-
6 to
Are you
8?
talking about where it juts out there and
Yeah.
then comes back in? I was wondering the same
Where
thing.
it's discolored a little bit?
Yeah.
So that is because when that site plan was submitted, the berm was only going to be in that darker area. My staff, I highlighted where I think that and talked to the petitioner about doing a berm all along the property line rather than just in that one specific area. So the discoloration there is just from where I highlighted over where they were showing an original berm being placed.
And is that a 50-foot buffer width, I would assume?
Yeah.
That's what yeah. So 50 foot, so just so you guys understand, you're only going to slope it at a 3-to-1 slope. So you got to go 24 feet to go 8 feet high, which means you go 24 up. Theoretically, you got about a foot. You don't mound dirt perfectly on points. But, I mean, I'm speaking for my personal opinion here. If it says 6 to 8 feet in the applicant, I would recommend we go 8, because I know. I would agree. I would go 8, and I would also ask, just to clarify, so I understand, is there any landscaping proposed along that berm, along the entire distance, or no?
As it's currently been,
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, yeah, we have the microphone hooked into social media, and believe it or not, we have quite a few viewers listening, so.
thanks. When we spoke with planning and staff, we had not contemplated doing additional landscaping, just making it an earth berm. If the commission has something else in mind, we're happy to do that as well.
To consider.
There's been many in the past that have done the berms and the landscaping, right?
I mean,
Shrubs or
It is,
pines.
and they should, I mean, there's going to be some that don't last, but that I don't think between a 6 and an 8 foot it's going to make a huge difference on what lasts and what doesn't. The only reason I would consider making that a commitment, quite honestly, is because of how far off to the west this is in comparison with the rest of the, but I don't know exactly how I feel right off. If I know that's a very long stretch to require landscaping along the entire thing, that's a pretty significant cost. I was going to ask too, is there a concern from an access, chief, from an access perspective?
Not from a law enforcement perspective. The fire department has already run the numbers.
Okay.
They didn't have an
Okay.
issue with it as well.
Okay.
The other thing I want to address is Ms. Royal's note about this having a unique address, because right now it's currently using her residential address. So I'm assuming it's going to be using a different address than what is her address, which she states here as 4765 South 300 East in Lebanon.
Correct. The reason for that, I understand, is that's a function of the county auditor's office.
Okay.
And as soon as it's possible to assign a unique address to this parcel versus the Royals residential address, we're happy to do so and take whatever step is necessary to achieve that.
Okay. Thank you.
I was going to have one other comment made because I run into this pretty often. Sometimes we can play games with what a berm is. If you go, it's 8 foot on one side and 4 foot on the other. I would strongly recommend we consider making it an 8 foot berm on both sides, which I know can sometimes be challenging from a design perspective, but the way these types of buildings often work is the building's going to sit 4 foot higher, for instance, on that southern of the two, than what the dock grade is going to be right outside. That's one reason why I think making an 8 foot berm is better than 6, because a 6 foot berm seems pretty high until you realize that fact.
There's the offset.
Yeah. So I would ask that we as a commission make a commitment to go with an 8 foot berm.
On both sides.
I kind of like to. I think, I mean,
Is that possible?
yeah, I think it'd be, well, let me back up.
I mean, I
don't
know
if
that the proposed building kind of butts up against that, so
I don't know if it would make a much of difference on the sight
Okay.
line. And that's something that we've actually talked about a little bit with the UDO update. But I think I'd blanketly just ask that we make a commitment for an 8-foot berm and instead of a 6 to 8. That's my opinion.
I would agree. Can we,
Yeah, based on that location, I agree with that too.
yeah,
I would just include it in your motion to
okay.
make that to be one of the, I mean, we already have the commitment for no access off of County Road 300. So I would, if you want to as well, make that one of the commitments, you can do that and an 8-foot berm.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion to recommend the approval of this zoning amendment pending the commitment to an 8-foot berm on both sides. Yeah, that would be my motion.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, docket PC 17037, zoning amendment 2PL LLC passes with the commitment, or the recommendation passes with the commitment of the 8-foot berm. Thank you, everyone. We'll go ahead and move on, as long as we don't have any other unfinished business. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to new business. This is a public hearing for the Legacy Core TIF Plan Commission order.
So basically, I think we've kind of, Plan Commission has approved a lot of these. This is just a order to expand the Legacy Core TIF district because of a GDI, to include a GDI development.
Yes, that's correct. It's GDI is expanding, so they're putting Legacy Core TIF is expanding as well.
Okay. And for my own, maybe for the public's benefit, can staff explain why that's a benefit to the town?
Are there any public comments, questions, concerns in regards to this Legacy Core TIF Plan change? Hearing none? Okay. We don't need to make a motion on this or anything, right? Just wanted to make sure it was open to public hearing.
I believe we do need to make a
You
motion.
need
Maybe-
a motion to concur with the
Okay.
redevelopment
And
commission.
Jason, this is going to help because it's going to pull more potential capital into
Yes.
the downtown
Yes.
because of the development that's happening on the north side of Albert. That's why.
Correct.
Okay, so this coincides with that, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I'll make if there's no further discussion on it, I can make a motion that we approve. I guess how would I do that? Approve the Legacy Core TIF plan or as presented?
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
So-
All right, the Legacy Core TIF Plan Commission order amendment passes. Thank you. Moving on to other business, Whitestown Plan Commission rules and procedures update. All right. Do you want to give us the rundown of that, Brittany or John?
to do it? You want to do it, John? Either one?
I think Brittany's looking at me, so
Is this
I
like,
can do
is
it.
this,
I don't. I
is
use
this
it for
dress code?
BZA,
Because
so-
I'm in a world of hurt if this is dress code. I'm just kidding.
There is, John and I had a meeting the other day and kind of went over, there's a lot of things within the Plan Commission rules and procedures that just need to be updated, some language. I mean, I don't think the last time it was updated, it's been, I don't know, 20,
it's been about 4 years.
yeah.
It was before the UDO was actually in effect, so that's the main thing that we're doing here. But then, if you looked at my cover memo, I don't know if you've had a chance to look through those. There are 7 points there where we're recommending some policy changes for you to consider. I'd like to go through those one by one, make sure we've got a full understanding of those. I don't want to take all evening, but certainly.
I remember reading through the second point. That one spoke to me personally.
Okay.
The current time limits. So yeah, if you don't mind, if you could just run through those really quick and just.
Okay. I'll take them in order of On page 2, we have a provision in there that says that issues relating to building permits can be referred to the Plan Commission, and I'm not sure where that came from in the first place, but those issues, if there's a question and the director makes a determination, that should get appealed to the BZA, not to the Plan Commission. So I think that should come out of the Plan Commission's rules and should stay in the BZA's rules. So that's that one, and that's kind of a, yes or no thing. On pages 6 and 7, then we have our current time limits for public input, and when we look through those, we realize, well, it says generally we're supposed to allow a total of 25 minutes for our public hearings, but then when you add up all the segments, it came out to be 55. And I don't understand why we need to allow 55 minutes for a typical public hearing. In fact, the one tonight only took maybe 10 minutes, and that's more typical. We do have lengthier ones, but generally, in my experience with other clients, I think 20 minutes is an adequate amount of time for public input, and 15 minutes is usually enough, should be enough time for the petitioner to make their presentation. And, they should be asked to keep it within that 15 minutes unless it's an extremely complicated proposal. And then I think everybody will know about that, and we'll probably have the whole room full of people and we'll want to take, 2-3 hours.
And we
for
always
the
have
whole
time. At our discretion, we can always make it longer.
thing. You can always suspend your rules, or the president has discretion to allow a little more time without the formal suspension of rules.
Hey, John, one question I had was, so the amendment says not more than 45 minutes for each petition consideration, but then it goes on to say that the petitioner has 15 minutes. So is that 45 minutes? Is that 15 minutes that the petitioner presents allotted part of the total 45?
45 minutes is the total.
The total for that line item?
For that line item.
Okay.
For the petitioner, for the public input, and for the staff report. And the other thing, and I've noticed that we kind of go back and forth on staff report, is you want the staff report come after the petitioner's presentation or at the end of the hearing after the public input?
Personally, I would prefer the petitioner presents and the public has a chance to prevent any sort of bias, whether it be positive or negative, and then we go into the staff recommendation, and then after that have the Plan Commission present their comments and concerns. But that's solely my opinion. In an order of things, I'd rather them be able to get what they want to say out and then have any chance to address after the fact.
And Mr. President, that is more typical of what I see around the state with other plan.
I feel like that's gone better than having, because the other way would be having them come up after the fact and them having to go back and forth.
I think,
So-
and it needs to be just consistent across the board,
Yeah.
because the BZA does it differently than
What
Plan
I've
Commission, and
what I see, I do
can be there.
I do a lot of work over in Plainfield, and the way that they do it, I actually kind of like, is that a staff planner will present at the very beginning what it is, which a lot of times tends to be a rereading of kind of what it is and what they're doing, but it kind of frames it. And I'm not suggesting that's what we do, but maybe it's something we consider in the future. But then, at least if I'm a remonstrator and I'm sitting in the audience and I have my points to make, I guess the staff report is always made available beforehand. So any remonstrator can read the staff report and know what the town's recommendation is going to be. So it doesn't bother me, but I would just want to make sure the person sitting out there who wants to remonstrate knows what the town's position is.
You mean anyone that wants to remonstrate, or the petitioner in particular, or?
No, the remonstrator,
Okay.
either for or against. I think it's nice to
Okay.
know what the town's position is, the town staff position is, planning staff is, before it starts. But because it's listed in I'm kind of talking in a circular pattern, but because it's in the staff report to begin with, I think it's okay to do it the way that you suggested and John says is consistent.
I would say I'm fine with either way, as long as we give the public a chance to speak before the Plan Commission decides to to discuss it. I'm cool with either
I
way.
think last Thursday's BZA is a good example of this. When I gave my staff recommendation, I kind of did something I don't normally do, and I explained my position on why I gave my recommendation before we had any public comment. That way they could kind of understand. And if I answered any of their questions about why I made the recommendation, or just about from a planning perspective. So I think maybe it would be best if I give my staff recommendation before.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair as well, because you can give the facts and the contextual part in regards to the UDO, PUD, whatever.
You're suggesting it the opposite way. That's what
You're suggesting to do is, so basically the petitioner speaks and then you give
And
your
give my staff
position,
recommendation,
and then
and
the
then-
public has a chance
And
Correct.
then the
to
plan commission.
speak.
if they
That's
do.
the way we've typically done it, I believe, on.
I would say on that
Yeah.
note, I think it would be nice to have, I don't know what it would take for the public to actually read the stuff that comes out before. I don't know, this is just an ask to the public out there on Facebook, to read what's going into a plan commission meeting, so you can come prepared, and being able to actually counterpoints or have a discussion about it, I think is super critical. I guess it's more of, I was just trying to deflect that, but I also see that, I mean, this is your job, this is John's job, this is the petitioner's job, this is your livelihood. Like, there's a lot of work that goes into it that I don't think many people think. And I want to respect the work that's gone into it before it just gets derailed by a bunch of banter, in my opinion. So I see that point as well.
I'd like to do what you said and do it. Yeah. And I also think it would be helpful if we make it a pattern, because a lot of people come to these meetings and they really have no idea what's happening.
Yeah.
I think it would be helpful at the
Can we
very
put that
beginning.
in here?
Well, I was going to say, maybe as the president, you could at the start say, okay, we're going into this portion of the meeting, and this is what's going to happen. There's going to be an introduction, there'll be a rebuttal, then we'll talk amongst ourselves. And I don't know, just as someone, I want to be cognizant that a lot of people don't come to these very often, and we tend to have these situations kind of like tonight, where it's kind of a little bit crazy, and people aren't walking to the front, and people aren't, I think we
Right.
give people a little direction.
Can we put it's not necessarily something to follow, but could we put like a rules of engagement type thing in here to where at least it's documented
agenda.
and it's,
We can do that, or some commissions have little pamphlets that they prepare, or leaflets, if you will, and they make, in their, they don't prepare a new one every time.
Yeah.
It's just the standard process for a public hearing.
I think it would be helpful.
yeah.
And then the staff can leave those sitting out there so people can see in advance, oh, okay, they're gonna get 15 minutes to make their presentation, but the public's gonna have 20 minutes for their input, and then the staff will give a report, or the staff report comes after the order, and then how much time. they're
That'd be
gonna
super
give.
helpful.
I think, to be quite frank, I think when people come up and they want to talk and they don't come to the front, or they don't state their name, or they don't state their address, and they're trying to make their point, and we have to cut them off, it probably irritates them. But frankly, it's because they don't know exactly how they're supposed to do this. Sure. So if we gave them a little bit of direction on how they're supposed to do it, I think that would go a long way for both sides.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, and I think we, probably the majority of people haven't read the staff report before they come. They may not have looked at the agenda and read the staff report. And so it also doesn't, when you read the staff report, I think before they come up to speak, then they understand, that's been recommended before they've ever, it could sound like your staff report is kind of based on sometimes what they have to say too at that point in time, but that way it's clear the staff has already seen it, looked at it, this is the recommendation they make, and it gives them a chance then to come up and share. Because, I wouldn't assume that they've read the staff report before they arrive at all, if that makes sense.
Okay. Sorry, we can continue, John.
That's okay, and that's what we need, is to have a full review of this. And the one thing that's in our rules that actually kind of surprised me, and we just haven't been doing it, it says in our rules currently that the president shall do a roll call on every vote. And I don't recall us ever doing a roll call. we always do a voice vote. And again, that is typical from what I see with other commissions around the state. They do it by voice vote, unless it's, you know, really
Contentious.
heavily controversial and the staff or the president decided, I want to find out what everybody's voting, how they're voting before I cast my vote. But I think the standard should be voice vote, but if the president deems it necessary, then a roll call vote, where you know it's going to be closely contested, and maybe you want to
Sure.
see how people are going to vote
That makes
before
sense.
you decide. So if that's okay, we'll
I-
go on.
I agree with that. Page 10.
And the next one actually was on page 8, and again, this is something that I think was borrowed from the BZA's rules.
Is it 10 or 8? Did you jump past it?
We went through the ex
Contacting
parte.
members.
Or on page 10.
We're on page 10, right?
Yep.
Well, I was looking at page 8.
Well, you crossed out, yeah, page
I
8 has
crossed
the
out
contacting members.
Middle paragraph on page 8.
Okay.
Are you with me on page 8?
I am.
Yes.
Yep.
That says that no person may communicate with members of the commission before the hearing. And that isn't state law. Now, I know some communities, even Indianapolis has it that way. They don't allow any communication with members in advance. And I frankly think that's borderline unconstitutional. On a rezoning, I think it's a legislative decision. The public should have a right to talk to you in advance, the same way they do with the town council members. And so I've always suggested with the Plan Commission, you should not restrict people from contacting members of the commission. With the BZA, that's different. It's considered quasi-judicial, and they're hearing variances that have to meet strict criteria, but I think that's a different thing.
There is a state statute or rule, correct me if I'm wrong, that says you cannot meet with more than 2 Plan Commission members.
We'll get to